This is CBC Vancouver News.
This is someone who has repeatedly demonstrated that he is profoundly dangerous to children.
BC's premier slams the federal parole board after a convicted sex offender left a halfway house and didn't return. The Crown says it did oppose his release. Plus, a rock slide near Karamias closes a major BC highway and forces people out of 2 properties. And would you use it? TransLink wants your thoughts on a gondola up to SFU at Burnaby Mountain, but they don't have the money for it yet. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We have more details about how a high-risk sex offender left a Vancouver halfway house and is now wanted Canada-wide. Police have been searching for convicted sex offender Randall Hopley since Saturday. He was under a long-term supervision order after serving 6 years in prison. As John Hernandez tells us, BC's premier is blaming the parole board, while his critics claim prosecutors could have done more to keep Hopley in custody.
High-risk offender Randall Hopley was supposed to appear inside this BC courthouse today, but he never showed.
We want to do everything that we can to track him down, to rearrest him so we can send him back to jail where he needs to be right now.
Hopley has yet to be found after fleeing his halfway house on Saturday. Police confirmed he removed an ankle bracelet, suggesting he did it to avoid his court appearance.
Given his history of violent offenses, sexual offenses, offenses against children, it's incredibly concerning to the community.
Hopley served 6 years for the abduction of a 3-year-old boy in Sparwood. He was released in 2018 under a 10-year supervision order. In January, he was charged with violating that supervision order. He was allegedly caught using a computer at a public library near a group of children. He was arrested and subsequently released. BC's premier firmly putting blame on the federal parole board.
This is someone who has repeatedly demonstrated that he is profoundly dangerous to children, and the fact that he was able to walk away, that the parole board did not place adequate controls on him is a big problem.
But critics say prosecutors could have done more to keep Hopley in jail after he was arrested earlier this year.
The Premier and certainly the Attorney General should be not just trying to blame Ottawa, but perhaps looking into the circumstances that we're dealing with as to how the decision was made to consent to a release for Mr. Hopley into the community.
In a statement, the BC Prosecution Service said it opposed Hopley's release.
They asked the court to keep this individual detained. Unfortunately, as we have independent court system in this province, as in the country, that was not upheld.
And we're not always going to get it right.
This former Crown prosecutor says the court's decision to release Hopley likely wasn't taken lightly.
We cannot simply, lock them up and throw away the key. And the courts are always trying to balance individual liberties with protection of the public. And in this case, they thought they had that balance right.
Investigators say he could be heading to eastern BC, including Sparwood, where he has roots. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Advocates for abuse survivors say such events can be very triggering.
The traditional kind of trigger thing we think of is a car backfires, military vet jumps to the ground thinking it's a gunshot. But with sexual abuse, it's largely this more kind of amalgamous thing that goes on. So when they read about it, they might read about that there's abuse happening. It can kind of trigger that sense of powerlessness. A lot of survivors really, really want to be able to protect others. So knowing that he might be at large and other children might be at risk can also bring up a lot of these things, especially for people that haven't talked it through or processed some of the trauma.
If you or someone you know needs help and would like to speak with someone confidentially, you can call Victim Link BC. The service is available 24/7 at 1-800-563-0808. You can also text that number for help. The Crown and Defensa have agreed on a suggested sentence for a man who was drunk driving and caused a crash that killed 2 UBC students in 2021. Tim Gurner pleaded guilty to dangerous driving causing death last month. Today, attorneys agreed that he ought to serve 3 years behind bars and be banned from driving for 5 years. The victims, Evan Smith and Emily Selwood, were both 18 years old. A rock slide near Karamias has closed Highway 3 in the southern interior and forced people out of several dozen homes. Brady Strachan has more on the major shutdown.
This roadblock east of Karamieas is as far as drivers can go. Behind it and around the bend is where rocks and debris have fallen onto the highway, forcing the closure of the roadway. The rockfall happened about 7 o'clock Sunday evening. A photo uploaded to a local Facebook page shows a large boulder on the road. The slide knocked out hydro in the area, and emergency officials closed the highway and ordered the evacuation of a nearby RV park and mobile home park. Tim Roberts is an area director with the local regional district.
We get regular rockfall that happens with wet weather like this, freeze and melt. But every once in a while you get a lot larger rockfall or something with a significant size of a boulder. You become a little bit more concerned that maybe there's more instability behind it. So you want to make sure that everybody is safe.
Steep slopes in the Karamieas area tower over the valley, and rock slides are common here. Officials have brought in a geotechnical team to assess the slide area, but on Monday, low fog was making it a challenge to put a helicopter into the air and allow the team to get a good view of the slope in order to assess the risk of more material coming down. Meanwhile, Highway 3 is closed in both directions.
You're looking at one of the main corridors to the coast in regards to trucking, transportation, and people's need to get to goods and jobs. So it's a fairly significant cause of concern when it closes down.
The regional district has declared a local state of emergency, and about 30 people living in the RV and trailer park have been asked to leave. Officials have opened an evacuee reception center in Princeton, about 60 kilometers away, where people can access emergency support services. Officials say they can't estimate how long people will be out of their homes or how long the highway will be closed until engineers have assessed the area. Brady Strachan, CBC News, near Karamieas.
You may have heard this one before. Instead of buses, build a gondola up Burnaby Mountain to shuttle SFU students and other people back and forth. If you've got a sense of déjà vu, join the club. TransLink is gathering opinions about that idea, but as Justin McElroy explains, there are some big money challenges.
Gondola, gondola, gondola. You may have heard that word again and again when it comes to SFU in recent years, and you're hearing about it again today. TransLink is asking for feedback on their business case for a gondola linking Burnaby Mountain to the Production Way SkyTrain station. And you may be wondering, what's new? After all, the city of Burnaby and TransLink have been studying the gondola and consulting about the gondola and endorsing the idea of a gondola for a long time now, getting to the point where everyone is on the same page. Yes, a business plan has to be formally endorsed, but these sorts of projects rarely get stopped at this stage. The truth is, TransLink doesn't have the money yet. It's part of the $20 billion they're asking for over the next decade for a host of projects. What is new is this fun video, showing you what being in the gondola could look like, and these fun pictures of a station, which means you'll hear more about it today, even though very little has changed. It's another case of how sometimes we're very good at talking and studying and consulting about a public infrastructure project that pretty much everyone seems to want, and a little less great at actually paying for it. Justin McElroy, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still with infrastructure, construction is set to start on a new Dewdney Bridge this fall. That bridge connects Highway 7 on either side of the Nickelman Slough near Mission. It was built in 1958, the same year as the George Massey Tunnel, and it has seen better days. The new bridge will be constructed beside the current one and will include a pathway for cyclists and pedestrians. The old bridge will be open during construction, but drivers can expect periodic delays. After 4 years off the rails, Vancouver's Stanley Park train is making a comeback.
That's right. It's back, baby. It's awesome.
The beloved miniature train ride was first canceled in 2020 because of COVID, then faced engine mechanical issues and safety concerns in the subsequent years. Now it's set to return for the holiday season.
This was a long journey, a lot of hard work, a lot of sleepless nights, quite frankly, I think, for all of us to make sure that we could deliver sort of these holiday wishes for all those who enjoy the train each year.
Tickets are set to go on sale this Thursday. The train itself still has to undergo a safety inspection. It'll start riding at the end of the month. Rogers Communications has locked out 300 Metro Vancouver workers after the United Steelworkers Union began striking today. The employees were part of the Shaw merger that was finalized in April. The union says they're striking against the company's decision to increase the role of outside contract workers. Well, the company says its latest offer promises job growth. The two sides have been at the bargaining table since February. And construction is underway on 103 new housing units for people living in the downtown Eastside. That housing is specifically being offered to people experiencing or at risk of homelessness. The $75 million project was undertaken by First United Church with extra funding from the city, the province, and Ottawa.
This housing project addresses an immense need in this area. Many of you know we just had the results of the recent 2023 homeless count, and we know that the Indigenous community is disproportionately overrepresented in Metro Vancouver's homeless count and population, particularly here in Vancouver.
The Luma Native Housing Society will run the services once it opens. The 11-story building will have 35 supportive housing units and 68 subsidized rental homes prioritized for Indigenous people. It will include 2 low-barrier drop-in spaces, a heating and cooling center, outdoor deck, computer lab, administrative and program spaces, a commercial kitchen, as well as a dining hall.
Why are you not diverting the flight? Do you see his condition?
A grieving woman is demanding answers from Air Canada after her father suffered a medical emergency on board a flight and later died. The Go Public investigation is next. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. Many post-secondary students are feeling overwhelming cost of living pressures here in BC, and it's particularly stressful for international students. Over the weekend, though, a Surrey expo aimed to ease some of the affordability strains. As Janella Hamilton tells us, students were given tools to help them navigate their new home.
We can go for the RSPs and then ESPs for the children.
From setting up bank accounts to getting pro bono immigration advice, hundreds of international students dropped by Khalsa Aid's second annual Winter Expo Saturday, an event designed to make life a little easier for newcomers.
One of their biggest stress factors for international students is, immigration status, schooling, making enough money that they can support their education.
Neha Parmar is an international student from India, completing her MBA at University Canada West in Vancouver. She says she relies on monthly food donations as she is only able to work part-time on her study permit, and most of her paycheck goes toward rent.
We do have pressure of studies to do best with that. We have the pressure of working. We have to do, save some money for our future.
The expo also equips students with new winter jackets and connects them with crucial services like mental health supports and WorkSafe BC.
They may not even understand what the labor laws are, so what they're actually, what they're entitled to, vacation pay, overtime pay, things like that, where if they're not aware and they're ignorant, people take advantage of that.
Organizers say many international students never voice workplace concerns because they fear it will affect their immigration status, and that's if students can even secure a job. Shashvat Barot says despite having previous work experience, he spent months searching for a job in BC.
We have dropped so many resumes everywhere. We have applied on in there, and we can get a job, and it's really hard for us for now to manage our finances.
Vancouver is very costly, right? So this services help us to save some of the money.
Parmar says it's not just financial strain either. Moving to a new country far from family can be lonely and overwhelming, but events like this, she says, help her feel supported.
It feels more like family.
Khalsa Aid says this year there are more than 700,000 international students in Canada, with those in BC having to pay 4 to 5 times more in tuition compared to domestic students. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Surrey.
An Ontario woman mourning the death of her father is demanding answers from Air Canada. She wants to know why the airline's crew didn't divert the plane when her father suffered a medical emergency on board. Instead, that flight continued for 9 more hours. Erica Johnson has this Go Public investigation.
He is looking so happy here.
Shanu Pandey pores over cherished photos of her father, taken before they boarded a plane in Delhi 2 months ago. 83-year-old Harish Pant was headed to Canada to start a new life with his daughter's family. But the 16-hour Air Canada flight took a turn.
He started complaining of chest pain after 7 hours into the flight. And he was like asleep and he's saying, I'm having a severe chest pain. He held his heart like this.
Pant became weak, lost control of his bowels, started vomiting, developed back pain. Unfortunately, there was no doctor on board. His daughter says she urged flight crew to get the plane diverted to a hospital while they were still over land. The pilot contacted an American company that provides airlines access to on-the-ground doctors. Eventually, a flight attendant shares the news. The plane is staying on course.
I said, why are you not diverting the flight? Do you see his condition? She's saying that, it's a non-life threatening condition. So, my God, yeah, I was so shocked.
Go Public described Pant's symptoms to 5 doctors. All said he was showing signs of a serious cardiac event. All said they would have recommended the pilot land the plane as soon as possible.
I can't believe that the ground crew wouldn't have suggested that they divert.
It shocks you?
Very much so. Yes.
The flight continued on, finally touching down in Montreal. Pant died shortly after. An Air Canada spokesperson says the airline extends its deepest sympathies, but categorically rejects any assertions it was responsible for the customer's death, saying crew properly followed procedures. It wouldn't say what information was used to base its decision not to divert. Pandey has yet to unpack her father's suitcase. She wants to keep close memories of a man she says wasn't given a fighting chance. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Harish Pant's death comes as Air Canada is already under fire. Canada's Minister of Transport has summoned airline representatives to Ottawa after 3 high-profile events involving passengers living with disabilities who use wheelchairs. They claim they were not given the assistance or respect they needed. Joining us now is Chrissy Bon, who experienced something similar when flying with her son Tanner Bon in 2010. His custom wheelchair was broken on an Air Canada flight and he couldn't leave his hotel room for days. Chrissy, first of all, thank you for joining us. What goes through your mind when you hear stories like this 14 years after Tanner's case?
Well, sorry, Dan. I'm actually kind of speechless. That's the first time I've heard. Just God bless. I send all my love, my heart, just to the family. I'm speechless at that. I was already appalled at what happened to the fellow Rodney, I believe. So, what can I say? I mean, please ask me some questions. First of all, thank you so much for letting me have. It's just so unfortunate that after all these years, after what happened to us, and we weren't the first. It was just it happened to become news, right? Thankfully for Twitter, my sister was with us because otherwise Air Canada would not have done anything for us then. And I'd prayed and hoped and thought that something they were supposed to have rectified it back then. So I'm sorry. I'm sort of at a loss for words right now. Like I'm trying to not cry, but because my heart just breaks, I'm stunned.
That's okay, and we appreciate how difficult this. I can't even imagine how difficult this would be. As much as you're able to share with us, what is the impact of these kind of mistakes, if we can call it mistreatment, on people who live with disabilities? Do you think?
Well, I mean, it's the dignity, the lack of dignity, the lack of compassion, the lack of respect. I mean, it's not just the physical pain. I mean, I can't even imagine the emotional pain that the family, I mean, there's all of that too. It's impossible to put into words. I mean, for this gentleman that just passed, this was a heart attack, for Rodney, for Tanner, for other people, and I've heard other stories over the years, but we were, you pay less attention because we thought it had changed. It's horrific. It breaks your heart. It breaks their heart. Your heart just breaks all around. You're already battling something, and for them to just blow it off again. You know, I didn't want to come into this I don't have any unkind words, but it's absolutely appalling. I really have nothing nice that I can say about Air Canada as a corporation, to be perfectly frank. I'm stunned, and I really hope, I know I'm sorry if I should let you take the wheel, because I could just go off on it.
Yeah, we appreciate your time. Lastly, what do you want to see come out of the meeting between the Transport Minister and Air Canada officials?
Well, so what can the government do at this point? When our incident happened, it was the Minister of Transportation in Ontario. And I'm not quite sure. I mean, first of all, they need and must be held accountable, even on a basic human rights level. I mean, for us, I can't even imagine what we would have done. Tanner couldn't physically even move his arms. I mean, they would have had to deal with us. And then they have to change, but they were supposed to have changed 14 years ago, 13 years ago, right? And that still hasn't happened. I think more people need to speak up, whether it's just in current or, I don't think there should be any time frame. I think it's about time. And because we don't have any other choices, Canadians, or very limited options, we are forced to use them. I have had the benefit of flying with other airlines throughout the world. And I'm sad to say I'm a proud Canadian. Air Canada is the worst airline I have ever traveled with, and it's not just with Tanner. There have been experiences otherwise. I understand that there was a celebrity that had just said it shouldn't represent Canada in no way. I'm so sorry to say that, but it's just appalling. So, they know. I don't know how they regulate Air Canada, but the government hasn't been doing their job either then, right?
Chrissy Bond, the mother of Tanner Bond, we appreciate your time and your perspective on a very difficult topic. Thank you very much for joining us.
They can just be better, right? God bless. Thank you for the time.
There's a live shot of Harbour Centre and a lot of cloud in the background. Definitely November in BC. Darius will have your province-wide forecast after this.
It rises out of the gloom in North Delta like some gigantic prehistoric monster. The twin-towered Annesis Island Bridge, connecting the area with Highway 99. When it's finished next June, the roadway will span 931 meters, making it the longest cable-stayed bridge in the world. It looks for all the world to a layman like an ordinary suspension bridge, but it's not.
Everything is suspended from what, the two main pillars, is that it?
Yes, everything's supported from the towers, and all the cables are individual cables rather than using one large main cable.
110 men have been working on this provincial government project since March of 1984, but it's only in the last few months that it's really started to take shape. Today, they were putting in the permanent anchoring for the south span.
We're essentially tying the bridge down to the first side pier. During the course of the construction, we've been using temporary tie downs to stabilize the bridge. It's a milestone because we've now tied down to a permanent pier. Once we've tied down to this side pier here, we can then carry on erecting the rest of the bridge to the center of the main span.
The cost of this project doesn't rate in the same league with Expo or Northeast Coal, but it will cost $47.5 million to build the bridge. The people who live in this area say it's well worth it. So far, the building of this bridge has gone like a textbook exercise. It's on time. In fact, it's a little ahead of schedule. And so far, no major design problems have come up. When it's finished, it'll be the longest of its type in the world. Bob Gillingham, CBC News on the Annesis Island Bridge.
I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On December 7th, join CBC Vancouver's Dan Burritt at the Alumni UBC webinar, Finding Joy in Climate Action. Experts will discuss what climate actions we can take that could also impact our well-being. And enjoy the seasonal celebration of quiet reflection and jubilant hope with Christmas with Corleone on December 15th, 16th, and 18th. Tickets at corleone.org.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Our province-wide weather forecast now with Darius Madavi. It is lighter earlier in the morning, and we get to see rain, which is spectacular.
It is. I'm glad you like rain because we've got more of that on the way.
Here, man. This is what we get. Yeah.
Yeah, so we've had still some showers popping up across the south coast, including here in Vancouver earlier today. Some snow seen in places like the Okanagan and further up north. But tomorrow we start to see a little bit of change in the forecast. We are still probably going to see some showers across the south coast. Maybe not here in Vancouver, though, because here you can see our low pressure, our unsettled conditions across the province. That high pressure starts to build in, reaching the south coast first, and then it continues to build really across the province by Wednesday, meaning it's not until Thursday. Wednesday's a bit drier, and it's not until Thursday that we see that low pressure sweep in from the Pacific once again, bringing with it a cold front that should bring some more showers and some snow to parts of the province. So here you can see that by tomorrow afternoon, for the most part, we've cleared up across the province. We'll still see some scattered flurries and some showers pop up in some places, but it's Thursday morning that we really see that next system start to roll through. You can see it already affecting the northern part of the island here. Now, some uncertainty as to where we're going to see the heaviest rains. We're still a bit far out to find out exactly what it's going to bring, but expect a pretty wet day across the coast on Thursday. Now, over the next 24 hours, even less than that actually, by tomorrow evening, we're starting to see most of what's going to be coming over the next 48 hours already having fallen. If we look to the end of this 48-hour period, you can see not much more building in the coast, maybe a little bit more coming for the island, but after that, that's pretty much all that we're going to see for the next 48 hours. Now, I should also mention tomorrow morning, we do have quite strong winds coming for parts of the east coast of the island, west coast of the island, and here in Vancouver, gusting close to 60 kilometers per hour. But besides that, there's not much happening. Tomorrow we start to clear up a bit for most of the south coast, but not everywhere. We see those flurries continue in other places. And then here in Vancouver, we see that one drier day, some showers returning on Wednesday, but just scattered, and then our rainy forecast returns as you requested, Dan.
I'm going to get a very angry email about that. But it's consistent, and we do need it.
We do.
There you go. Thanks, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
That is your late news for Monday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5:30. Before we go, we have another update for you about our shows. Starting now and for the next little while, I will be hosting both our 6 p.m. and 11 p.m. newscasts. And I hope you'll join us. Good night.